All right, guys, welcome to week 3. It is Wednesday night. I am here alone in the chat room. So we're going to start working on this, and I'm going to talk about stuff. We're first going to talk about week 3, what to expect in week 3. We're going to talk about the final project that you need to start working on now. Okay, so let me pop over to the web page here. So this week, we did a number of these, so we did some of this already. Again, watch the PowerPoint slides, read all the stuff that's here. I said in the announcement, the any, and some that I'm not demoing them today, so you have to check those out for yourself. And make sure you read all this stuff. And here's the reading objectives. I'm gonna go through this for a second. Please make sure you read everything. Please make sure you're paying attention to the slides and to all the reading, because a lot of the questions come directly from the not necessarily the book, but the extra reading. Because here we've got chapters 4 and 9, but we've got the MySQL tutorial page for where and these other things. Make sure you look at those. Please remember that all your quizzes are open book. Please remember that all your quizzes are multiple attempts. I mean, take that back. I think it might be one attempt. But take your time. It's open book. Is just, and there's only a handful of questions, so make sure you do your best on these things. If there's any problem with any quiz questions, please email me, email the TA, and we'll take care of them. Because some of the questions, sometimes the questions can be, we didn't write the quizzes, but we can alter the quizzes if there's a problem with them. So make sure you let me know if there's any problems. Okay, so let me go over here. So if you haven't watched last week's video, we used equality comparison operators, we used non-equality comparison operators, we used range comparison operators, and we used wildcards in the comparison operators. So that's all in last week's video, so I'm not going to go over that again. Zip back to last week's video, give it a look, and you'll be golden. This week we're going to talk about using subqueries in comparison operators, and we're going to talk about how to use null values in comparison operators. So subqueries is when you take a select statement and you put it into the where clause. It's pretty easy. It's pretty fantastic, and I'm going to show you how to do that in a second here. And I'm adding a couple things that aren't normally taught in this class, but as I was writing the test queries for what we're doing tonight, I felt it. I wanted to write them that way, so that's how I wrote them. And then we're going to see some stuff, and plus you're going to see a little preview of something that's to come in the coming weeks when we're talking about joins. Okay, null values. Null values are literally values in columns and cells that are empty. It's not even a space. It's not any kind of ASCII character. It's empty. It's a void. It's a null. It's like a black hole. It shouldn't exist. It's really a bad idea in databases. You want to avoid nulls at all costs, particularly in columns that are indexed, because nulls in index columns cause very, very bad things to happen. The indexes don't skew right. They take weird amounts of space. Lots of things happen. So don't do that. And if you see someone who did that, don't be a know-it-all. Don't point fingers. Just kind of quietly suggest that it gets fixed. Having done that and been the know-it-all, you don't get a good reputation that way. So try to just, like say, hey, have you ever thought about doing it this way instead? You can replace it with a space. That is valid, or any number of other things. But I'm also going to show you a little trick in here. If there is a null in there, the other big problem with nulls is when you write the select query and you turn null, it just says null. And that doesn't tell customers anything. We remember, a good portion of our job as DBAs is to make sure the data comes out in a way that's presentable to the customer. So they look at it and they go, oh, that's what that means. So if we just start throwing nulls at them, they're going to first wonder, like, what's a null, and then why is it sitting in that column, and blah 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 blah. So we want to make sure everything's presentable to the customer. Okay. So let's take a look at these queries I've got here. Let me shrink this up here. Okay, so the first thing is, how do you put a select query into a where clause? As you can see here, it's very simple. Where customer ID equals, and then in your parentheses, you put your select query. Now, what I did here is I did something a little different that I don't think is actually covered in this course, but there you go. Here's your bonus for week 3 for watching the video. You're going to learn how to use variables. So when you create a variable, you use a select. Now this is, let me caveat this. This is how it's done in MySQL. In every other version of SQL, like in Microsoft SQL Server, it's the declare statement. In Oracle's, it's something different. So in MySQL, and I believe MariaDB, you use the select, and you put a little ampersand, you put a little @4 symbol here. That thing right there, the little @ symbol, that goes in front of the name of the variable because that tells the engine that it's a variable. Now, quick thing, if you use one @ symbol, it is a user-defined variable. If you use two @ symbols, it becomes a system-defined variable, and those are default built in. So never, ever, ever try to declare a variable using two @ symbols. Only ever use one. Okay, so select your variable name, set your variable name. We're going to set that equal to more. Okay, this just allows me to pass values into the query so I don't have to hard code things. Just makes my life a little easier in this case. So here I want to do select, and I'm using the name of the variable, and that's going to give me the value. And you'll notice here that I'm using the as command to rename the column. Okay, select your name variable as customer, and then I'm using that count thing that we did last week to aggregate the number of rental IDs that are associated with this customer ID as rentals from rental where customer ID equals select customer ID from customer where last name equals your variable name. Okay, so if I took this here and just popped up here for a second and ran just these 3 lines of code, I'm going to get the customer ID 9. Okay. Make this smaller, please. Thank you. Okay. All right. So that's what this is just going to pull the variable ID out. I could have done where last name equals more, but I kind of wanted to give you guys a little bit bonus for watching the video this week to learn how to do variables. Particularly because we're going to talk about the final project. You might want to play with variables in the final project. So select your name as customer, variable set your name variable as customer, count equals rental ID as rentals, from rental where customer ID is, select customer ID from customer where last name is your variable name. Now you're thinking to yourself after watching last week's video, Brother Stevic, you said if you're using an aggregate function, you have to have anything that is not in the aggregate function sitting in a group by clause. This is the exception to that rule because we're not actually pulling anything from another table. We're just throwing a variable there. So there's really nothing to aggregate on. So this would be, if I took this out and it was just count rental ID as rentals, it would be the same thing. So when you are doing something like this, where there's only a variable coming back, you don't need to put a group by clause there because it just confuses everything. So let's see what results we get here. We know that it's customer ID 9. So let's go ahead and run this bad boy. And it takes a while to come up with the answer because it's thinking. There you go, 23 rentals. So Mr. Moore or whomever it is, has rented 23 videos from us. Okay, take another example out of here. So let's say we want to find out how many videos an employee has rented out, like as these sales, he's convinced other people to rent. So here we have your variable name your variable name is Hillier. Select your variable name as employee, count rental ID as rentals from the same table. It's still a rentals table from rental where, oh shoot, let me fix this here. Glad I caught that. It's where staff ID equals staff ID from staff where last name equals your variable name. So if I look over here under rentals on this side here, and I should have done this before, I'll see I've got customer ID, I've got staff ID, I've got inventory ID. This is a table that just kind of collects information from others. There's no names, there's no actual text values in here or bar chart values. It's all IDs because it is a table that links the information from all the other tables. So let me run this real quick and see what we come up with. So employee Hillier has rented 8,040 rentals. He has rented people 8,000. This is a very good employee. I think we should keep them around. Okay. So there we go. There's that. Okay. So again, and you can do this any way, shape, or form. You can have like, you don't want to get crazy. You don't want like a huge query in there. You want a small query, pulling one, or you could like if you could use like we did last week. We did where in. So we have multiple things returned here. We can do like, where staff IDs between a couple numbers. So you can have a couple of things here. It doesn't have to be equals. It can be in, any, some, not in, whatever. But that's that. So let me show you one query here real quick that I used to base this all off of. So we're not talking about inner joins yet. So this is just kind of a quick look here. So what I did was I joined these two tables, customer rental, on the customer ID column. So I don't want to get too much into it, because next week I get really into next week or the week after next, I get really into joins, and I show you a video about Venn diagrams. It's all great fun. So what I want to do is I'm taking these tables, and what I want to see is I want to see every customer that we've ever had by their last name and how many videos they've rented from us. And here's my group by statement. Since this is an aggregate and this isn't just a one-off variable, it's actually part of the query, I've got to put the aggregate there. And I'll run this, and Bob's your uncle. Got all these people here doing stuff. Okay, so Buford rented 25, Bull 40, Bun 22, so on and so forth. Okay, so that was just kind of a bonus thing. That's like a prognostication. It's like a harbinger of the future, because we're going to be talking about joins pretty soon. But anyway, all we do is we use the appropriate operator here, equals, in, not in, where, blah, not equal to, blah, blah, blah. And because I could put a not equal to there, I can put this into that, right? This is going to return all sorts of bad things, because I'm returning way more than I should here. So I'm not going to do this, because I'll show you what it's going to look like here. So I do this, and I run it, and now we're just waiting for it to run. So this is incorrect, because Moore did not rent 16,000 videos. Everyone but Moore rented 16,000 videos. So we just change this to everyone but. Okay. Okay. So there's that. Okay. I'd ask if there are any questions, but we're recording a video here. And if there are, please remember to email me, respond in the announcements, respond to the discussion boards, send me a letter, send me a comment on a YouTube video, whatever. Like and subscribe. I don't really care if you like and subscribe. It's just me and a bunch of family videos. So anyway, okay. All right, so that's that. So let's talk about nulls. So right here, and I'm just going to talk about, so right here, I'm going to go and say, I'm going to select star from film where special features equals trailers, because right now I know that there's no nulls in there. So I have all this where it's just trailers. So I'm going to change that, and I'm going to replace, I'm going to update the film table. I'm going to set special features equal to null, specifically where special features equals and it's only trailers. So I'm going to do that just to demonstrate a couple of things with this. Okay, so now if I go here and I do this again, I get nothing. But if I go here and I select, now you theoretically can do equal null. It's not, it works sometimes depending on the column. You should always say where column name is null, not equals null, because technically it can't equal because there's no actual value. You're asking, can it equal a vacuum? And that doesn't really work. So we go here, and all this stuff is null here. How fun is that? I made it null, but it's null. If I want to see what isn't null, I can do this and select star from film where a special feature is not null. And I do that. And look, it's everything that's not null. Got all this stuff here. Now, let's say I'm returning this title and special features. I don't want this null showing up, okay? Because I don't want the customer to see null because they're not going to know what that means. It's going to be confusing to them. Now, the command I'm about to show you is not part of the actual curriculum. It's just something that I think you need to know, so I'm sharing it with you. I'm adding this little nugget of wisdom for you. It's actually one of my favorite words, coalesce. Coalesce is a command. Now, this command in MySQL does not do the same thing it does in other SQL systems. Coalesce command in MySQL looks at a column and says, in this case, it coalesces special features. It says, okay, special features, if I ever see you showing up as a null, I'm putting NA instead. That way the customer never sees a null. Okay, so the command coalesce in MySQL only takes the column, reviews it. If there is a null in that column, it changes it to NA. So if I do this here and I run this like this, as I showed you, I got a null here on Airport Pollock. I got a null here on Angel's Life. I got a null here on Armageddon Lost. If I go here and do the coalesce command, it now says NA. It can say whatever I want it to, because it's just a string that I put in. But now, doesn't this look better for the customer? You put no features, you know, whatever you want, but that's just easier, okay? You want things to look good for the customer, plain and simple, okay? So to change it back, update film, set special features equal to trailers, where special features is null, okay? Do that, boom. I check my stuff here, boom, and look, I've got all my rows back that now say trailers only, okay? So like all things, take this stuff and play with it. See what you can do, especially with the where clauses. You can get crazy with these where clauses, with the subqueries and the where clauses. You can, I forget how many because you can do a subquery within a subquery within a subquery, but I think there's a limit before the SQL engine freaks out and leaves. So I wouldn't go too many down. I would at max go one. I wouldn't even go past one. I just do where one is. And the reason I showed you this with the inner join is because this is the sane way of joining tables. This is a fun way. You can totally do this, but you can do like, you know, you can do the same thing here and put a where clause in here with the variable and stuff like that. So there's a lot of things to play with. When you're learning all these codes, just play with the code. Say to yourself, hey, I wonder what if I do this? Hey, I wonder what happens if I do that? Hey, I wonder what happens. And when we get into the joins in the next 2 weeks, I'm going to write some really interesting codes that just shows just weird things. Things like no sane person would ever want to show in a query, but I do it just to prove the point of what a where clause can do, or rather an inner join can do. Okay. So that's just foretelling the future. So nulls, again, nulls are bad things. We do not want nulls in our databases in indexed columns. If it's not an indexed column, like special features, there's no index on it. No one cares about it. Put nulls there to your heart's content. Original language ID, there's no index there. No one cares. So feel free to null those. But like film ID should never be null. Titles should never be null, because unless the title in fact is null, which would be weird. But so we want to keep things clean, and nulls really sully everything up. Okay, that covers the two things I need to talk about specifically for this week's lesson that I did not cover last week. We talked about how to use subqueries, and we talked about how to use null value, learn how to use null values in comparison operators, meaning where clauses. The text and the other things you're going to read will have information there. I did not use some all on purpose to give you guys something to figure out on your own, kind of challenge you on stuff. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start talking about the final project. And minimize this and maximize this. Okay. So that's not the final project. This is the final project. Okay. So last semester, we started offering a final project as opposed to you can do if you don't want to do the final exam. The final exam is 150, 180 questions. It is an open book exam. You have, how many questions is, I have to look it up. I don't want to go into my screen. That will show you there because it might show you stuff you're not supposed to see. It might not be 180 questions, but it's a fair number of questions covered on all the reading from lessons weeks 1 through 14. It is open book, open notes, open whatever. It is a 90-minute, 180-minute test. 6 hours for tests is a little extreme, but yeah, I think it is 180 minutes. So it's not that hard. It's open book / notes / everything. So it's pretty easy to pass. However, if you want to be challenged, if you want to really embrace the design part of database design, this is what you want to look at doing. So I'm just going to go over the deliverables. Here's all the stuff you need to read to do this. What you need to give to me is, so essentially for the final project, you were designing a back-end database for a real-world application that either exists or something you'd be really cool to think it exists, or something I know a number of you have done work in other classes where you've designed front-end applications, and you just have not got around to the database back into it. If you got that in your little bag of tricks, pull that out, write the database for it, and you have a fully functioning application that you can show off to potential employers. That is always a very, very good thing. Okay, so what you need to do is you got to come up with a real world, an application that actually exists, a website that actually exists, that you think you can make better. And there's some out there that, let's face it, could be done real much better. Or something that you're creating from scratch that's never been seen before. And the first thing you need to turn into me is an ERD design. And we've talked about ERDs. ERD is just a basic blueprint of the tables. And in there, it has to have the table name, the column name, and the data type. It also has to, and I'll show you examples of ERDs as the weeks progress, and you'll find them in your lesson plan, as in your lessons and stuff. We'll talk about the ERDs, and I'll show them to you. You can do it in Excel. There's applications out there that do ERDs. However you want to do it, you can draw it on paper and then scan it in and send it to me. I don't care how you do it. I just need to see what the ERD is. And again, the ERD is the table, the columns, the data types, and the relationship to other tables. So how the customer table relates to the orders table relates to the whatever table, okay? You have to have a minimum of 12 tables. That might seem like a lot. It's really not. Coming up with 12 tables is actually pretty fast. Let me sidebar here real quick. If you choose the final project, let me know. I will keep track of you. I will ping you weekly or bi-weekly to see how it's going. I will set up at your request one-on-one times to go over things with you. The final, like from week 10 on, Wednesday nights are just only talking about anyone who's doing the project. And we'll go over them together as a class or whoever shows up that night. So don't freak out if you see 12 tables. 12 tables are very easy to come by. Create test cases for all CRUD operations against the 12 tables. Create, read, update, and delete. It is a tragic acronym. CRUD is, they should think of something better, but it is just CRUD. And so what you're doing is you're creating create, read, update, and delete. What this basically means is you're writing all the create statements for all the tables and all the indexes and everything else. You're writing all the read statements for any data that you want to pull out of there, whatever scenario you might come up with. You know, select this from customers, select this from whatever. All the updates and the deletes, which also are the inserts. So you will need to write code that puts data in the tables, okay, in the proper order. Because we're going to talk about foreign keys in a couple of weeks. And with foreign keys, you got to put data in the tables in a specific order or it will not work. Okay. You need to create index that maps the user interface, CRUD test, and SQL script that supports the test cases. So your test cases. So let me. So what a test case is. Let's say you are, because we have a database here that tracks movie rentals, because everyone rents their movies now through little stores. So let's say you design this out. You've got your create statements for all your tables. You've got your select statements that are just basic. Select all the users from who use a specific store. Let's say select all the users, all the customers from from like who run like by genre, like I want to see everyone who rents mysteries, everyone. So you're at the simple ones, okay? So basically, your test cases are, we want to know how many customers are renting romance movies in February. There you go. That's a test case. Write the code for that. We want to know how many people rent the Harry Potter's film on Harry Potter's birthday. Write the code for that. We want to know how many staff are recommending specific movies to customers in February. So like just how many staff members are renting romance movies to customers in February. Anything like that, okay? So, and it could go like, who's renting movie, what month has the most rentals? What week has the most rentals? What day of the week has the most rentals? Pulling up like a query to pull up customer history. This is where the variable would come in. I want to pull up the customer history. I'm going to put the name in the variable and pull up, how many they rented, what months do they rent by mostly. A lot of things you can do. You don't have to write a bunch of them. I think last semester I said you had to have at least, you have to have the 12 create statements for all the tables if you have 12 tables, and then plus probably another 20, 25. So you're looking between 35 and 45 CRUD statements on this. You want to do a mock-up of what the UI looks like. You want to an index that maps the user interface CRUD. So like if you're like what that means is like if you were going to do like a customer history for the rentals, you want to know what it would look like. How does the information get input into the front end? So let's say the manager looks at this, and so we have a web page that and forgive me for not drawing stuff. If we were in a classroom, I'd have a whiteboard, be drawing all sorts of crazy things. But let's say you have a web page and you have like a text box for customer name and a select button, and you put the name in there, you hit the select button, and it populates the table below. So anything like that. Then you need to create a PowerPoint presentation that explains the business purpose of your model, the rational design of the UI forms, and explanation of the SQL scripts and tests of the ERD CRUD operations. So I allowed this last semester, and it actually made grading a lot easier for me. So I will leave this to you guys. You can do the PowerPoint presentation, or you can do a quick video that goes through all this stuff. And so you can have, some people did the best. They did a PowerPoint presentation that they narrated and went through it. I find it a little more interesting and easier to do the video. That way you can kind of explain it rather than worrying about, you can just like show the thing, just point things out. If for some reason you want to do like a live presentation to get feedback, we can absolutely arrange that. Just let me know. We'll pick a day. If you're good with it, we will publish it. So anyone who wants to come and see it they can come and ask questions, because honestly, if we were doing this in a classroom setting with like, in person, we would totally be doing this as a presentation project for everybody. So, but that's the final project. It's not a lot of work. It's way more than the final exam is, I'll be honest with you. It's a lot of work as far as that's concerned, but it's not terribly taxing. And if you really are looking to more of a design slant to this course, because this course is here to like help you design things, but it's primarily here to teach you how to write code, write queries, understand the process of how it works, how information comes out of the database, how it goes into the database. This allows you to like kind of design something. You can decide now to do the project, and then like on week 13, go, wait, I'm never going to finish this in time, and then do the final exam. There's no there's no rule saying when you have to decide. You know, you can you just can't do both of them. You have to do one or the other. Because if you do one, the other grade locks out. So if you do the final exam and get a bad grade, you can't go back and do the final project unless you let me know, and I'll probably let it happen because that's just, you know, what I do. But okay, I think that covers everything that I wanted to talk about tonight. Please, if you can, show up on these Wednesday nights because it works better if I've got questions. I can talk for hours on things, but you know, I don't know what you guys need. If there is a better time to do these, let me know, and I will try to make that time happen. I am in Florida on the East Coast, so I know that it is now 7 o'clock West Coast time, Utah time. If you're over in England or Africa, like I've had some students there, it's like 2 o'clock in the morning now, so I'm sorry. So that's harder, but try and make sure that if you come to these, if not, if you have any questions, make sure you pop them in the announcement comments or in the discussion boards so I can address any comments you have or questions you have here. One quick thing, let me reiterate, I take any and all late work up to week 12. Anything after the week 12, I don't take anymore because I don't want to like do some kind of 50-yard dash trying to grade everything at the last minute. So if you are right now, it's week 3 and you still haven't done week 1 stuff, submit it. I will accept it. If you haven't done week 2, if it's week 7 and you're missing 3 weeks worth of stuff, submit it. I will accept it. My goal is to make sure that you guys get through this class, but you got to do the work. Also, if you don't let me know things are late and don't let me know what's going on, I may not accept the work. Part of this class is communication, and let me know what's going on. I've said it in announcements and everything else. There's yet to be a semester where someone hasn't had a baby, someone has lost a loved one, someone hasn't gotten COVID, and I can say that now because it's been a year and a half about the COVID thing. So things happen. I get that. Communicate with me, communicate with your TA. If anything goes wrong, we'll accept the late work, but you've got to let us know what's going on. I try to keep this class as real world as possible. And if you are on a deadline in your company and you have a personal crisis, they will, generally speaking, as long as it's a good company, and you can tell companies by this, they will like let you push things back or make adjustments or whatever you need to do. So that is pretty much my spiel on that. I think I'm done. Okay. Any questions? Come back, let me know. Other than that, I will see you guys for week 4. Take care and good night.